everyone. Hi. Thank you for the introduction and thank you to the last speaker. Can you all do me a favour and just say hello? Thanks. I'm going to put you on my Instagram story and tag all of you. Nice one. Yeah, thank you for coming and being here. This is me. I'm just going to talk about Dazed Beauty, which is one thing. I've been working in the industry for 10, 11 years, but this is a really significant thing that I've been working on for the last year, and something I'm really super proud of. And I think it'd just be nice to talk you through the process and the thinking behind it and some of the individual projects. So I was brought in to work on Dazed Beauty. It had been being discussed at Dazed for a few years, I think a couple of years. And I made friends with a lady called Isabella French, who's an incredible makeup artist. And she introduced me to Bunny Kinney, who's the editorial director there. And we kind of worked together as a team with Jefferson and a sort of a team that grew to develop Dazed Beauty. So I was there from the kind of, when I started working on it, it was an idea for a platform, and the idea was kind of the future of identity and changing the narrative of beauty from a prescriptive version of what we think beauty should be into being about identity and a personal description of what beauty should be. So that's the kind of ethos of Dazed Beauty. And the guys had this kind of launch idea of kind of Art Deco meets sci-fi meets prog meets Art Nouveau. That was the kind of, did I say Art Nouveau twice? Art Nouveau, prog, sci-fi. So this is a kind of very early mood board. And we also, very early on, went as a team to meet this guy who's called Carl Smith. He works at Ravensbourne College, and he's like a consciousness researcher. So very early on, we had this kind of aesthetic focus, but also we started talking about the philosophy of consciousness and, like, you know, what does it mean to have an identity? And that might sound abstract, but we're kind of playing around with it all the time ourselves now in a way that we wouldn't have done 10 years ago. So, like, we are changing our identity, and the way that we communicate that to each other is really revolutionary and mind-blowing. But I don't think that we necessarily think about the philosophy of that much. But we spoke to him, and he worked with us on a few articles. And just, I think there were many people we spoke to, but he's a really, really interesting guy and very inspirational to me with all of this stuff. The logo, I mean, I'll talk about logos and all of that stuff. I do love the work that we did with that. My intention with this was for it to be kind of uncomfortable and new and different, and I think we achieved that. It's also, I sort of felt like it would be nice to make something that always exists as a texture. So the final thing is this. It's if you see the reflection that you see is a world that we built. We built this 360-degree CGI world, and that's what's always reflected in the chrome. And those letters on the left, I think we just spent like months and months working on something that you haven't seen before. It's a bit weird, it's a bit prog and Art Nouveau and sci-fi, and yeah, kind of reflected how we perceive beauty, like it's a bit uncomfortable and personal. And this mark on the right, two faces looking at each other, and they're not pretty, so there you go. These are, oh, it doesn't play. So this is the world that we built. So we designed this world with an artist called John Emeny, and the logo in the middle is a piece of script, so it's just coded to reflect the world. The world is something that we designed in CGI, and when you arrived on the launch site, it worked with the kind of accelerometer in your phone, so you could look around the world, and we hid little hidden messages in the stars and in the rocks. And basically, it's like a lipstick crash landed on an alien planet, and there's two little explorers looking at it. And, you know, it's like quite an obvious sci-fi trope, but it felt right for us to launch like that. And this is how it looked. You know, I mean, I did do the kind of standard art direction stuff. So I worked with Holly Benwell at Dazed, and who did the website. And, you know, we talked about fonts and colors and all of that stuff. And that, you know, that's important as well. And now it's just it's a fully functioning, popular website and Instagram, and you can see the mark and the logo in operation there. But they always reflect that world wherever they are. And then we made, this is a sting we made. This is like a little kind of teaser thing. It's meant to be foundation or who knows what. Yeah, that's the logo. We just did this kind of spinning render. There were lots of these things that came out when we launched. The main feature that we launched with was this. Isabella had this idea of 3D scanning a bunch of beauty icons And then we commissioned 10 different artists, CGI artists, to turn them into characters. And her and I and Bunny and various other people all worked together to develop these characters. So this is Princess Gollum, who's kind of Instagram widow celebrity. And we turned her into this albino vampire bat. So it was very much reinforcing that narrative of it being about personal identity and pushing what beauty means. This is Slick Woods, who's she's a model, a great model, and this is her turned into a character by Rick Farron. So this was interesting because working with Dazed, I guess most of the people we were working with had mostly worked on photo shoots and films, and this was like a new thing. So it's not a film and it's not a photo shoot. It's this kind of new workflow, and we had to establish that, like as a working process, like how do you commission it and how do you work with people and who does what. And the thing that enabled all of this is technology. So the technology to do this stuff is now accessible, like Unity and Unreal and Cinema 4D and stuff like that, and some Adobe software, guys. But it makes this stuff much. I think it sort of fits with the narrative of what we're doing, in that to be a famous fashion designer or you have to spend a lot of money, but to be a famous beauty star now, you don't have to spend anything at all, which I think is fascinating. Like, you can be a massive celebrity on Instagram just doing stuff with Facetune and whatever, and I love that. So this is kind of part of that narrative. We were in Berlin, me and Isabella, and we met this kind of kid came up to us with Sebastian's like a grown man, came up to us with a laptop and said, look at this. And it was it developed a neural network that they trained on beauty images, and it just draws beauty images forever. It's called a generative adversarial network. And he said, let's do something together. So this is what we developed, a much more kind of fleshed out version of it. This is the neural network, and it's drawing what it thinks are beauty selfies based on data that we trained it with. So it will just keep doing that for infinity, forever. And none of that imagery exists. It's all kind of drawing it from this brain that we developed. And I kind of fell in love with all of this stuff while we were doing Dazed Beauty, because, I've always been into technology and code, but it's at this really amazing point in history where, again, Python script and GitHub and stuff like that are very accessible to anyone. So it has opened up creativity within coding. So we then took this and we shot Kylie Jenner with Daniel Samwald in America, and we used the makeup looks generated by the network to do her makeup and her hair, and we did this whole editorial based on that. And again, like the logo, it's kind of deliberately uncomfortable. And, so yeah, it was a way of introducing the world to this stuff like artificial intelligence and what identity means and how we're going to be generating content in the future. I don't want to scare anyone, but the machines are coming for sure. This is a face filter that we made, so based on this stuff that I showed you before, we abstracted some of that and worked with an AR specialist and developed an Instagram filter which came out last week. So all of the looks on that are generated by AI as well. And that's Princess Gollum and Isamaya on the left. Yeah, and then we did a print magazine because I was quite keen for us to do that, because I think it's still, you need print as a form of legitimacy still, which I think is quite annoying, because actually a lot of the moving image stuff we were doing was really engaging. But there's something with photographers still where the first thing they'll ask if you try to commission them is it for print or online? And I think that's just the way it is. I can't, there is a good reason for that. If you shoot for print, it will still be in that printed magazine in 10 years, and that's absolutely true. So we did this print version of the mag. And on the left, that's Travis Scott and Kate Moss that we turned into centaurs with who was it? Travis Brothers and Dario, this guy called Kaveh Carnams, who's this amazing CGI artist. Kylie Jenner on the right, and then yeah, we had some more kind of straightforward photo shoots like Casper Sayerson and Greta Ilyeva. This is a beauty shoot. I just did I pulled together a shoot that was just makeup and lighting, because having done all the CGI stuff, I wanted us to show we can just do straightforward beauty things as well. That was about falling into black holes. That was a thing we did with Aweng. That one on the bottom left is that's Kate Moss looking wistfully in the distance as a centaur, and that's Genesis Peorage on the top left. And yeah, they're all kind of, my colleague Emmanuel O'Brien helped with the typography on all of this stuff. He was like, I have a studio of people that I work with, and none of this stuff is anyone on their own. It's all really collaborative, which is cool. And we also kind of, everything we commission now, we try to make sure there's some moving image elements. So this is the Aweng shoot from print, and we sort of had some moving parts for online. We did this story called VR Salon, where we imagined a future where all of us are wearing Google Glass, but not shit. And you can tell me what your haircut should look like, and I'll see what you want me to see. And I think that's all coming very soon, but this is a speculative fiction kind of thing. I think it's speculative fiction, but it's fun and engaging and, pop culture as well. But again, it's sort of introducing these ideas that are quite kind of philosophical in a really pop culture way. And Isamaea wrote this really amazing manifesto. So the print issue that we did, we called it a manifesto for the future of beauty. And that's that is what we believe. It was not very long ago that a beauty shoot was literally about lipstick and mascara and foundation and a model. And now we think that has radically changed. And Dazed Beauty has been a part of that. But that's the beginning of the story. I think the interesting thing is where does that stuff go next? And I think our view is that it's about okay, we know about all of this stuff now. What's the real craft in CGI and augmentation and AR and AI? How does that become indistinguishable from the human touch? And all of that stuff is really interesting. So there you go. Thanks.